Hello and welcome to this special edition regarding the suffering of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the efforts of Egypt under the leadership of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to be alleviating this suffering on the burdens on the shoulders of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. But we'll be starting straight away with the main top story for today as Egypt and Turkey unite in the urgent call to save Gaza and protect the regional stability. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi reaffirmed Cairo's unwavering commitment to the Palestinian cause during a meeting with the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, underlining that Egypt will not relent in the efforts to halt the suffering in Gaza, from keeping the Rafah crossing open to spearheading the humanitarian convoys and the diplomatic mediation. Egypt continues to stand as Gaza's southern lifeline, rejecting any plan to reoccupy the Strip, opposing forced displacement and pressing for an immediate ceasefire, humanitarian access and the release of captives. The talks also reflected the growing Egyptian-Turkish alignment, not only in supporting Gaza but in strengthening the bilateral ties. Both sides hailed the remarkable progress in relations since the February 2024 agreement to revive the High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council, now elevated to the presidential leadership. On regional issues, President al-Sisi shared the Egyptian vision for the peace and stability in Libya, Syria and Sudan, stressing the need to safeguard the sovereignty, unity and the resources of the nations under strain. Both parties reaffirmed the rejection of foreign-imposed solutions and their commitment to collaborative diplomacy. The meeting underscored that the Egyptian role is not confined to rhetoric. It is active, tangible and driven by the moral duty to shield civilians from the horrors of war, not only in Gaza but across the region. And to be shedding more light on the visit of the Turkish Foreign Minister and his meeting with the Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for today, I'm honored to be having with me over the phone Dr. Diya Hilmi, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Dr. Diya, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and this special edition. Dr. Diya Hilmi. Dr. Diya, can you hear me? Dr. Diya. Yes, and we will be returning, as I mentioned, to the main topic for today, as we have seen over the past 22 months the atrocities of the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. But we'll be focusing during this special edition on the Egyptian efforts to be alleviating the suffering over the Palestinians and more specifically in the Gaza Strip. And I think we have Dr. Diya. Dr. Diya Hilmi, can you hear me? I think not. So once again, we will be returning to the main topic of this special edition, and we will be heading to the first report for the special edition for tonight, focusing on the suffering of the Palestinians and ways of Egypt on the diplomatic and the humanitarian levels to be alleviating the suffering over the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. We'll be having more details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
Egypt has condemned in the strongest possible terms the Israeli ministerial decision to adopt a plan for the full occupation of the Gaza Strip, a move Cairo says would entrench an illegal occupation, deepen the campaign of annihilation and attempt to erase the very foundations of Palestinian file and statehood. This official denunciation comes amid frantic Egyptian efforts to protect civilians, broker pauses in the fighting, coordinate humanitarian access, and lay out a reconstruction plan that prevents forced displacements of the Palestinians in Gaza. Across the Arab and Islamic world, the reaction has been swift and unanimous. Leaders and ministerial committees convened in Cairo and elsewhere have rejected the occupation plan as a dangerous escalation, a blatant violation of international law, and an attempt to force a permanent reality that extinguishes prospects for peace. Arab summits and joint ministerial statements reiterated support for a Palestinian state of the 1967 lines, with East Jerusalem as its capital, and backed Egypt's mediation and reconstruction blueprint, insisting that the Palestinians in Gaza people must not be uprooted from their land. Now more than rhetoric is needed. Egypt's calls and the desperate voices from the Palestinians in Gaza demand immediate political, legal and humanitarian action, an urgent halt to any plan that would militarily occupy and depopulate Gaza, unfettered and lasting corridors for aid, international mechanisms to protect the civilians, and to guarantee a credible path to Palestinian statehood. While the whole world is waiting, Egypt has emphatically rejected claims it closed the Rafah border crossing, insisting its side has remained open as a steadfast lifeline for the Palestinian people. Cairo stressed that it is the Israeli strikes and control on the Gaza side, not Egyptian policy, that have repeatedly disabled the terminal, while thousands of aid trucks queue on the Egyptian side awaiting authorization. The world's institutions must move from condemnation to concrete measures before an entire generation is lost to famine, fear, displacement and death.
Welcome back. You're still watching 9 TV International, and this special edition regarding the Gaza Strip and the 22-month-old war and the aggression by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. But on the geographical and the diplomatic levels, we have to be differentiating between the crossings, as we do know ever since the start of the aggression by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians. There was a firm stance by Egypt and the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi not to be closing the Rafah border crossing, and this leads us to the crossings into Gaza. We have Gaza's 7 crosses. Each serve distinct purposes but face severe restrictions, as for example Beit Hanun in the north is the sole route to the West Bank, but remains completely sealed by Israel. Ash-Shuja'iyya in the east once brought fuel into Gaza but has been closed for about 15 years. Al-Muntar, formerly a major commercial gateway to Israel, was shut down in 2011 and turned into a military site. Al-Qarara east of Khan Yunis is used exclusively for the Israeli military movements. Al-Awda east of Rafah is a small crossing once intended for importing goods and construction materials. Karm Abu Salim, at the junction of Palestine, Israel and Egypt, facilitates goods and fuel transfers and sometimes substitutes for Rafah. Rafah itself, at Gaza's southern border with Egypt, is the main crossing for people and goods, kept open by Egypt for the humanitarian aid, despite the political tensions, restrictions and the repeated bombings. And still the world stands on the edge. Gaza's skies remain heavy with the echoes of anguish, deaths and heartbreak sitting side by side. In the past there were talks and negotiations about a possible ceasefire, but the idea alone felt like a breath held too long, waiting to exhale. But it's all history now, after the Israeli Security Cabinet approved Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to reoccupy Gaza Strip, while of course closing all the crossings under their control. And we are delighted to be joined over the phone with Dr. Ahmed Osama Abu Douma, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and this special edition.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure and honor.
Pleasure and honor are all mine, Dr. Ahmed. Of course, we do know about the importance and the stance of Egypt to be keeping from the Egyptian side the Rafah border crossing opened. How do you see the importance of the stance of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on the diplomatic level and on the humanitarian level regarding the border crossing of Rafah?
Egypt, with the leading of the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, is having a stable and insisting continuous support to the Palestinian cause and to support the Palestinian people, and the opening of the gates to Rafah to support with the humanitarian aid continuously with the Egyptian people and the Egyptian government and NGOs is reflecting how Egypt is supporting all of the time, all over the life, from the early beginning of the Palestinian conflict and the occupation, insisting to support the Palestinian rights, the humanitarian aid, trying to support people with medical treatment in the past. Now we just allowed to support people in Gaza to the humanitarian aid. Only Egypt is the leader of the Middle East and worldwide who is opening to support and to deliver the support for humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza. So it's really highly appreciated through a very difficult time with the Israeli insisting to control Gaza and to invade all of the humanitarian law worldwide.
Dr. Ahmed, of course, we do know about the efforts of Egypt on the diplomatic levels between the Israeli occupation forces and the Israeli government, and on the other hand, Hamas to be finding a ceasefire for the benefit of the Palestinians, for the benefit of the Gaza Strip in general. But on the humanitarian level and still with the Rafah border crossing, how do you see the efforts of Egypt to be pressing Israel and to be having more efforts regarding the international community to be pressing Israel in order to be opening the Rafah border crossing from the Palestinian side, which is controlled by the Israeli occupation forces, and letting in the needed humanitarian aid, as you mentioned?
Egypt, as usual, has the valuable and the weight diplomatically and politically in the region, in the Middle East, calling for the safety of the Palestinian people. We have difficulties through the control of the Israelis on the gate from the Rafah and the Palestinian side. And through all of these challenges, Egypt still diplomatically trying to networking and building a global cause for serving and solving the cause between Palestinian and the Palestine side and Israel. The call for the ceasefire and the role of Egypt as a mediator with the United States and Qatar to build up a solution for the situation, very complicated situation with a very tough Israeli cabinet side to trying to control Gaza again, all over Gaza. And we having today the Turkish Minister of Foreign Affairs to visit Egypt for building networking with the meeting of the President, with the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to make a side and stand up with Egypt for this situation.
Dr. Ahmed, of course, we have seen on social media and maybe some media outlets on the global level that Egypt is to blame for what is happening in Palestine. Egypt is to blame for what is happening in the Gaza Strip. We have told the story from our perspective that Palestine, it has a number of crossings, at least 7 crossings into the Gaza Strip. Only one of them is being controlled by Egypt. How do you see the tale being told by Israel and by some media outlets and most of the social media outlets and websites as well, that Egypt is to blame despite Israel having at least 6 other crossings that they control, that the Israelis control, that they are refusing to be letting in the humanitarian aid for the Palestinians. They are refusing to be having any diplomatic solution for the Palestinian cause in general, for the situation in the Gaza Strip in specific, to be finding a ceasefire for the benefit of both sides, and more specifically for the innocent Palestinians and the innocent civilians, the women, the children that are dying of malnutrition every day and every hour. And still, what we are hearing, and we even have seen some absurd protests against the Egyptian embassy outside, of course, in different parts of the world, to be pressing Egypt despite having the Israelis controlling the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing. How did you see the whole situation in the past couple of weeks?
Obviously, this is a false and rumors, blind faith to be told about Egypt and to mention Egypt in this way, because the facts talk louder than anything. As you mentioned, there are a lot of borders between Israel and other Arab countries, like 6. But the only one is opening through the efforts of the Egyptian side to deliver the humanitarian aid to our brothers and sisters in Gaza, is not to be denied anymore. People in this way, if they made this demonstrations not in front of the Egyptian embassies, which reflect the Egyptian authorities, to blame Egypt with nothing, with lies, it was better for them if they are really caring about the Palestinian situation, not only to make any kind of terrible lies and rumors against Egypt, who is the only one is caring about the Gaza and the Palestinian side, and trying to cease fire and to serve and to rescue people in Gaza and the whole Palestine, and even the suffering of the Israeli citizens themselves, who are really blaming their government for the aggression toward the Palestinians. We find out a lot of demonstrations worldwide is calling for peace and calling for ceasefire and calling for stopping the Israeli control all over Gaza and new occupation. This is the facts of the situation. Egypt has all of the efforts from the early beginning till now with a stable policy toward the Palestinian situation. We couldn't blame the Egyptian authorities, and the efforts is been now all over the world with open channels and media through the efforts of the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Egyptian authorities, intelligence, diplomatic side, and social responsibility from the Egyptian NGOs through the coalition built up with the blessings and support and call of the Egyptian authorities. No one can deny all of these efforts with a lot of convoys from Egypt to support and to serve our brothers and sisters in Gaza. The situation is, if they are trying to make any kind of exaggerating to give themselves any kind of political position, it is a really lie against the facts who is leading by the Egyptian authority. Second point, that if they are really national people and trying to make a humanitarian position, it would be better to make their demonstrations in front of the Israeli embassies in these countries towards the United Nations or to in front of the United States, to call them to make more pressures on the Israeli side to stop the more of aggression and salvation for thousands of people who are really innocent and they are not armed and they have no power to face all of these aggressions happening in Gaza and Palestine.
Yes, Dr. Ahmed, Osama Abu Douma, please stay with us on the line because we will be having a quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching Nile TV International, and this is special edition regarding the latest developments in the Gaza Strip and the efforts of Egypt diplomatically and on the humanitarian level as well, under the leadership of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, to be alleviating the suffering over the burdens and the shoulders of the Palestinians. And I'm honored to be having with me over the phone Dr. Ahmed Osama Abu Douma, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for being with us once again over this special edition.
My honor. My honor.
The honor is all mine, of course. We have a situation now that the Israelis intend to be fully occupying the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, how do you see the efforts, the possible measures that could be taken by the United Nations, for example, by the international community, by the European Union, by the United States, by the mediators, by Egypt, by all of the international community, as I mentioned, to be stopping this plan, to be occupying the Gaza Strip and to be ensuring the access of the humanitarian aid into the territory?
The situation is very complicated and very tough with the stubborn Israeli position to occupy and control all over Gaza. And it needs a lot of efforts and more of coalition and the responsibility of the international community by the United Nations and the Security Council, the European Union, and surely with the United States, which is playing a very important role in supporting Israel in their and blessing their steps. It needs more efforts. God bless Egypt, and the efforts of the Egyptian side is really clear and trying to build up a lot of cause. And we need more tangible steps from the international community. Yes, we can listen for a lot of words, usually having to condemn and criticize and refusing and rejecting what's happening, but on the ground, nothing is being stopped from the Israeli side. It needs a lot of diplomatic efforts to stop it, because the Israeli policy on occupation, not only for the Gaza Strip, but to against the Middle East, all of it, and trying to change regimes and to play a role for the instability in different countries in the region, and the calls from the extremist Israeli sides that they are looking for the greater Israel from the Nile to Euphrates. So this is a really hard situation, and it needs a lot of wise steps with more of humanitarian and international responsibility to stop the war in the region, started with the situation in Palestine and Gaza and the West Bank.
Doctor, I have mentioned during this special edition that Israel is controlling about 6 of the major crossings into the Gaza Strip. The Rafah border crossing is the only one under the Egyptian leadership and control. The closure of those crossings, 6 crossings into the Gaza Strip, it is considered some sort of a collective punishment for the inhabitants, for the civilians, for the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and Palestine in general. Do you see this changing under pressure from the United Nations, for example, that those 6 major crossings should be opened for the entry of the humanitarian access and the humanitarian aid to be accessed by the Palestinians, and those sorts of collective punishment like starvation as well? We have seen starvation being used in the past weeks and months. Do you think that those weapons of war could be stopped?
I hope so, as Egypt is the only responsible one now which is hardly opening the gates through the Rafah controlled by the Israeli side. And the control of the other borders and gates are not allowed from the Israeli side to serve and to help the Israeli, the Palestinian people. This is actually a crime against humanity. This salvation for people and not allowing them to even receive any kind of medical services, and at the same time they stopped the UNRWA, which is the organization belonging to the United Nations for the humanitarian services in Palestine. At the same time, we couldn't find any response and real initiative to make a change on the ground from the United Nations or the international community, all of the countries and all of the international powers to play a real role to stop this crime against humanity. And this is an invading for the international law. So it needs a real initiative to change what's happening now, because really it's unbelievable to find in the 2025 the United Nations, which all of their laws and declarations of human rights are all of this is meaning nothing now through what's happening on the ground of people suffering and killed and salvations. Nothing is changing long time ago. Egypt is trying hardly alone to make a change to serve the Palestinian cause, but in the other side, all of the borders through the Arab countries, through the Arab League, through the United Nations, through the United States, the European Union, no one is doing anything real on the ground. Even the diplomatic convoys or delegations from the Arab countries were trying long time ago to visit Palestine. They weren't allowed to do this from the Israeli side. The situation is very, very tough and very complicated, but I hope the international community and the Arab League, the European Union, United States, United Nations could do something for the innocent people to accomplish the international declarations of human rights.
Yes, and of course, Dr. Ahmed, we have seen the efforts this time on the diplomatic level to be finding a ceasefire between Hamas and the Israeli government or the Israeli occupation forces. How do you see the efforts of Egypt? How do you see the possibility of finding a solution as soon as possible for the benefit of the Palestinians, the innocent civilians in the Gaza Strip?
The Egyptian efforts is really tangible and noticed by all of the world, and due to the mediation all of the time, and also with the coalition with the United States and with Qatar, trying to find a solution with Hamas and the Israeli side, but they are all of the time negotiating, and by the end of the story, nothing could happen. Even we can find a lot of announcements that they are reaching a kind of agreement to stop and to cease fire and to stop the war. Also, the responsibility from Hamas side, they have to know that the situation is very hard. the Arab world is not like before in the past. The situation is very tough, and they have the responsibility to figure out a kind of peace to stop the kind of genocide against the Palestinian people. Egypt is doing a lot and trying to find out any kind of common ground between the Israeli and Hamas to stop the war, but till this moment we couldn't find this reachable. But maybe and hopefully it will be done as soon as possible, because people there in a very hard time, and for a long time ago, the people are suffering. Gaza was destroyed, more than 90% of the buildings and schools, hospitals.
Yes.
All of this put the Palestinians in a very tough and sad situation.
Dr. Ahmed Osama Abu Douma, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and this special edition for the efforts of Egypt to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians happening in the Gaza Strip for the 22nd month in a row by the Israeli occupation forces. Thank you for watching and goodbye.